Out of all the vehicles in War Thunder, the ones I like the most aren't very prolific or important. My favorite vehicles are really dumb. The one-off prototypes, the totally impractical experiments, stuff like that. I know that conventional vehicles like MBTs are more useful, but I'm at the point where I play for fun more than I play for kills or wins. Given the response to the last video, it seems like a lot of you guys agree. It should be obvious, but it's worth noting, I'm not saying Gaijin should prioritize these vehicles. There are vehicles that are needed much more urgently. So without further ado, here are some more dumb vehicles I think should be added to War Thunder. The first vehicle is definitely one of the strangest on the list. It is the XM729 Armored Assault Vehicle. When I first laid eyes on it, I wasn't even sure it was a combat vehicle, though that could be because it wasn't armed in this photo. In 1962, an M116 amphibious cargo carrier was modified to have aluminum armor, aptly named the Aluminum Armor Test Rig. After some reconfiguration, it was renamed the Armored Assault Vehicle Test Rig, and tested in 1965. Despite its very odd appearance, it looked to be a promising combat vehicle. Originally, it had two 50 cals. This was later changed to a 40mm grenade launcher and two 7.62 machine guns. You might be wondering how this vehicle could be useful in War Thunder, and the answer is pretty straightforward. HEDP. The grenade launcher has a dual-purpose heat round. You can view it on the Cobra. It can penetrate nearly 80mm. The rate of fire isn't as good as on the Cobra, just 225 RPM, but it would still be quite fun. It is deceptively small. I thought it was massive, but no. This photo does a good job of showing scale. It only had a crew of 2, and thin aluminum armor, so it wouldn't be hard to kill at all. Since it's based on a carrier, its power-to-weight ratio is quite high, about 33 horsepower per ton. On road, it could reach nearly 60 kilometers per hour. Next up, there's a vehicle that actually made it in widespread service, despite its very odd layout. When people think about the AML, the first thing to pop into their mind is probably the AML-90, the version with a 90mm gun. But the first version of the AML was different. It had a 60mm mortar. It was designed primarily for colonial use, so anti-tank performance wasn't needed very much. Eventually someone thought, hey, maybe it should have a better direct fire weapon, so they threw a 20mm cannon onto the thing. It was called the AML 6020, but it's not the variant we're interested in. An upgraded version, called the 6020 Serval, was produced later on. This had an improved long-range mortar, which could fire a variety of ammunition, including surprisingly APSSS and heat. Considering the diameter, the heat is shockingly good. It could go through 20 centimeters of steel. The APSSS isn't quite so great. It said it can go through 20 millimeters of armor at 45 degrees, at a distance of 1 kilometer. That's worse than an M919. It kinda makes sense, given the penetrator was apparently steel. The cannon is obviously not mounted coaxially, but had the same maximum gun depression, 8 degrees. The way it's mounted is pretty odd. It reminds me of how I would draw tanks as a kid, just slapping weapons everywhere. If you've used the Ratel 20 or Weasel, then you know what the gun would be like. I think it would be good around 7.0 or so. It would be better than the Weasel anti-tank wise, but it would have worse mobility, and no thermals. The next vehicle is also not a prototype, but it definitely is pretty funny looking. This is the Sultan L33, a 155mm self-propelled gun. It's from the late 1960s, and was built by Sultan Limited, an Israeli company. If it looks vaguely familiar, that's because it's using the M4A3 as a base. At this point in time, the IDF had a lot of Shermans lying around, so it made sense to use them as support vehicles. It had the same engine as the M51, but weighs a bit more, 41 metric tons. The superstructure was made of steel, but it won't stop much. The fighting compartment is entirely enclosed, and holds the large crew of 8. For defense against aircraft, a 7.62 machine gun is provided, so good luck with that. The gun has 3 degrees of depression, and fires standard 155 ammo. Think of it like a band cannon, except it fires a lot slower. I think it would be good at 5.7 or 6.0. And finally, the last vehicle. Despite their success with the Piranha APCs, the Swiss company Moag developed a lot of unsuccessful prototypes in the 1980s. One such vehicle was the Tornado MICV. Developed to replace vehicles like the Martyr, it had a very low profile, and superior weaponry. A number of turret configurations were tried, but we're interested in this one. This Tornado is armed with a 35mm KDE cannon, the same gun used by the Japanese Type 89. It was fed by 2 50-round drums, giving it 100 rounds of ready-use ammo. Obviously, it would be quite strong in War Thunder, given the turret's small profile and good depression angles. Personally, I would place it at 8.0 in the French tree. Performance would be pretty close to the Type 89, just without missiles, and with more ready ammo. Anyway, that's all I have to talk about today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.
You